It's my first test of the Ruby Amethyst matchup into Bucky. I've never done it before. I know all the theory. I know what I'm supposed to do roughly, but it's time to see if I can put it into practice. We're in the fifth round of Swiss. If you haven't seen the first 4 games, they are available on the channel already. Current record, 4 wins, 0 losses. Andrew is the same, 4 wins, 0 losses. And it's a big old test, particularly because Andrew won the die roll. They are going to be going first. And they're about to make a pretty big mulligan. 7! Look at my face. I can't believe it. 7, I say? Are you kidding me? And I didn't cut his deck either, which I kind of say, oh, maybe that was a good decision. So I know I'm up against Bucky, which is obviously very helpful. I know I'm looking for Brawl. I know I'm looking for Peter Pan Shadowfinder. It's really the time for that card to come into its own. I've been playing it in my deck for the first 4 rounds, and it's not been doing too much for me because this is the matchup that I've got it in the deck for. So I'm hoping to find Brawls. I'm hoping to find that. I'm also just looking for cards which are going to allow me to draw, get some presence on the board, and then replace themselves by drawing. So things like Brooms and Chernobyls can be good, but of course there's the threat of Babooms. I end up just going for 2. Of course, what I also need to be careful about here is not hitting cards like Be Prepared, as Andrew inks and doesn't play a card on turn 1. Good start for me. Of course, they mulligan 7. I would imagine they're trying to really dig for the Buckies and the Diablos and this kind of thing here. And on my side, I've got 2 copies of Friends. Now, 2 copies of Friends is interesting because if I ink a copy of Friends here, it might put Andrew off from playing the Ursula on turn 2. But then the risk is that they might not even have Bucky, and therefore they will just play Ursula on turn 2, even if I ink Friends. So I decide to ink a Broom, play a Chernobog. Sudden Chill gets inked by Andrew, and nothing is played. That is not a good start. Obviously, the full mulligan of 7 couldn't actually tell because of the way they're holding their cards what was gotten rid of. But a very risky and aggressive mulligan, and I think it's something that Andrew is a fan of doing. Didn't work out in this case. I have drawn Be Prepared, and it's very early for Be Prepared. Not a card I want to be seeing. I quest with my Broom, with my Chernobog rather, and I draw because I'm lacking other options. I find a Brawl, which is great news, because that is going to help me answer a Diablo, but I don't have a play at all. So the Fox gets inked, and it's back on over to Andrew. He's not looking too happy. 1 cost Diablo gets inked, and in comes the 3 cost Diablo. Well, good thing I just drew that Brawl, isn't it, really? I have 4 Brawls in the deck, 2 Peter Pan. Obviously, Peter Pan not quite as efficient as Brawl because it wouldn't be able to remove an exerted, ready Diablo, rather. But the Brawl certainly can. There we go. That's what you want to be seeing. That's the power of Ruby. Dealing with that Diablo, no problem at all. In comes the Bucky. Later than Andrew would have liked. I imagine they just top-decked it. I find a Peter Pan, so that's going to be an interesting option to try and rush in later. What I need to be careful about, though, is if I play it down too early, it can easily be removed by something like Strength of a Raging Fire. So that's something I'm definitely wanting to bear in mind. But a very good start for me. Andrew not drawing too well with that Bucky not coming down until turn 4. Diablo didn't shift in, of course, really early on. That's when things can get really scary. So I decided to hardcast Friends here. This is a very common line when playing against a Diablo deck. My job is to just try and make sure that Andrew can't whittle my hand down. I want to ink each turn. I want to get to 7 ink comfortably and be able to play the Be Prepared, play the Medusas and things like this. I do still have the opportunity to ink a card and play a Broom. But at this point, I'm worried about the Broom being removed by Strength of Raging Fire, mainly Storm Rage on or Baboom. So I decided not to play the Broom for that reason. Not sure if it was correct necessarily, but I think it was reasonable. And in comes another Diablo. So I have to discard. I discard Be Prepared, of course, because I can't play it for many turns. It's uninkable. And Andrew's very likely to just time that Ursula Deceiver on turn 6 if I never discard a Be Prepared to check for that. Even if I do discard a Be Prepared, they might still be incentivized to check. So Be Prepared is the obvious card to discard with the Bucky trigger. Of course, when I draw, Andrew's going to not draw yet with the Diablo because it's not exerted. So now is kind of that moment I was talking about where do I play the Pan and risk it being removed by let the Storm Rage on? Strength of Raging Fire, rather. That's a decision I have to make. Chernobog, I'm also a bit worried about being removed as well. and therefore I lose card draw potentially. Hovering the friends. I decide to play Sisu to get some stats on the board. My hand is pretty big at this time. Obviously, I could have just gone for friends. I didn't want to play the pan and have it removed by strength. Like Andrew could play a fourth character and then sing strength and remove my pan, and then Diablo is just chilling for even longer, right? I'm only going to be at 5 ink next turn, I believe, so it's not quite Medusa range, but nah, maybe that's not true. We'll see. The second Diablo comes in from Andrew, the third of the game. This full mulligan working out reasonably well for them. I think it's safe to say they didn't find many Diablos in the opening hand. Of course, that Bucky didn't come down till turn 4, which did help me out, though. I just got a Sisu this time. Not really sure about my decision to play the Sisu earlier on. I'm just kind of messing with him here, like, oh, wait till I go. So if I'm B King, not a bad option. Would remove either a Diablo or a Bucky. But yeah, the Sisu on the board does allow me to start questing and applying some pressure. Again, first time ever playing this matchup, so it's interesting if this was actually a good decision. But Pan, Shadow Finder, doing what he's in the deck to do, which is nice. Cleaning up that Diablo. But of course, there's another one where that came from. I've still got 2 ink available. I haven't inked yet this turn either, I don't believe. But Friends is my only inkable card. But what I do with the Sisu is I sing Friends. Of course, removing that Diablo first means that Andrew's not going to draw from it. And this gives me a inkable goat, I believe. It was a bit of a risk because I am low on inkables. As many of you have noticed, my deck list is pretty high on uninkables, 18. I didn't honestly think about the uninkable count that much when I built the deck. It seemed fine to me. And then once I was aware that I was quite heavy on uninkables, because I just wanted to play these cards, I just have to be aware of that and therefore change my mulligan accordingly. Like if I take super greedy mulligans, I'm going to end up in situations where I do have very unplayable hands. So that's something I do need to be careful of with my high uninkable count. And similarly in this situation, I could have just drawn more uninkables with friends. So a handful of uninkables. I wouldn't be able to ink each turn, but Medusa, B King, and as well as that B prep does mean that Andrew, of course, could come in with an Ursula and force me to discard a song card of his choice. Of course, that Peter Pan is still threatening Diablo as well if Andrew is unable to remove it. In comes a Flynn Rider, which is of course a Floodborn, which means I have to discard. So I've got a decision on B King, Be Prepared, or Medusa. Of course, the B King at this point isn't looking that great. Now there's a Diablo on the board. They could just remain readied to kind of counter that. So I think that B King is the obvious choice here. And that is indeed what Speci from 3 or 4 days ago now also decided to do. Diablo's exerted, so Andrew's going to draw a card. Andrew's only at 2 lot. I'm only at 1, but my game plan so far has gone well. They've not managed to whittle my hand down that much. I get to quest. I double quest, actually, with the Peter Pan. Ink go and just B prep. Okay. Why not? I mean, I could have done something different. The concern is if Andrew draws Ursula, they know that B prep's there. They could just slam Ursula, discard the B prep, and then there's one less card in hand for me. Whereas this just guaranteed that board clear and allowed me to stabilize with double Medusa in hand. Sudden Chill gets hard cast. Wow. That is spooky. Bye-bye Medusa. Spending 2 ink to get rid of Medusa seems pretty good to me. Andrew's just going to take a moment to see how many Be Prepareds probably and that sort of thing. I've played 2. I've gone at this point. It's just a 1-cost Robin Hood. That's not doing too much, is it? But I still have a card in hand. And I draw a second. So at this stage, I have a really interesting decision. B King, Undisputed, and Medusa are the options. So you might be thinking there's 2 options. I play B King or I play Medusa. But what about the secret third magical option? Do nothing at all. I don't want to blow my own trumpet too much, but I think that's a sign of a player that knows what they're doing. Just not playing a card and passing play on over. Something that you will see at the highest level with control decks in particular. Where there's some situations where I value this Medusa in hand more But I get punished. Look at my face. Look at my face. Punished. I was thinking there's like a small punish if I don't go for the B King. That it gets discarded. But I took the risk. Wanted to save it for more value. Didn't work out. So I'm sat there saying, oh, the magical play. And it wasn't even that good. But the Medusa's certainly good. The other thing I was concerned about is if I played the B King, then another sudden chill would discard the Medusa. And I wanted to protect the Medusa. Or something like a Bucky plus Floodborn. So that was the main logic. I wanted to protect the Medusa. I knew the risk of Ursula, but I didn't think that Andrew had it a few turns ago. I just got punished a bit. But very happy to still have that Medusa down to clear the Robin Hood. And top deck, hello! Yeah, unlucky, Andrew. That was a very nice top deck from myself. Mana Medusa to the rescue. I snapped that quicker than you've ever seen in your entire life. So I'm at 1 card in hand. Andrew's at 1 card in hand. But this is really my game plan as a Ruby Amethyst player, right? Just get to 7, stabilize the board. My top decks are going to be pretty good most of the time. At this moment in time, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to quest or trade. I just decided to trade. Like, in comes a Diablo, which is pretty spooky. Obviously, I need to try and remove this. The nice thing about having Medusas on board is if I can find a bounce, I might just be able to bounce that Medusa back and remove Diablo instantly. I do have a snake. I think Peter Pan is the other card, and I just don't think I quite have the ink available right now. So I play the Pan down preemptively somewhat, which isn't necessarily correct. As I mentioned, there's like punishes potentially, and there we go. That is a punish. My Pan getting Zeused. And that is a really big moment in this game because suddenly this Diablo is ready to go, and this could be a fatal error. Diablo exerted, so when I draw, Andrew is going to draw as well. I have double Medusa down. I have a fox and a snake in hand, a double quest. And I believe that inking the fox is going to put me to 8 ink. So snake comes through first, fox gets inked, and then the Medusa is played back down. So I am able to deal with the Diablo. Thank goodness after this Pan was removed, I was a little bit spooked. But I did have to ink an extra card in order to do it. So it's Robin Hood and Aladdin. Not exactly the most threatening play. I think it's 3 in hand for Andrew right now, which is a lot of cards. Is it really 3 in hand? Maybe 2. Just going to take a little gander at their discard, take the opportunity to just track what's still left. That might change how I want to play things. 3 Diablos gone. It's been quite a long game already. Of course, I'm going to probably just quest with everything here. Puts me to 11. I want to keep controlling the board. And I pass play on over. Not sure what I've got. Possibly a Be Prepared. Could be some kind of other control card like a Be King, Undisputed. Something of this nature most likely. Obviously at this stage I'd love to start finding the rabbits to start getting that card draw engine going. Ursula comes through and it's another Be King. I've been punished by the Ursula again. It's happened twice. And Robin Hood shifts in, ready to challenge, of course. And it removes the snake, which is going to gain Andrew a couple of lore. Which I do remember to add, thank goodness. Quest for 1 puts them up to 9. So I'm still ahead, but the board is starting to go back in Andrew's favour. And I'm on top. I'm in top deck mode. Sisu's not a bad top deck, if I'm honest. I've then got a decision on whether I want to remove the Robin Hood and give Andrew an extra card, or if I want to keep questing myself. And it's definitely an interesting decision. I decide to remove the Aladdin with 1 Medusa and remove the Robin Hood with the other, because this allows me to keep both Medusas on the board and gain back some board control. Of course, the Ursula is going to be able to trade into one of the Medusas. Jafar comes through. Thank goodness there's no Bucky available. Big decision from Andrew. Which Medusa do they go for? Which I think is what I'm joking about. They actually don't go for either, which is a really curious decision. I'm not sure exactly the logic on that one. I think they're wanting to keep the opportunity for Jafar to remove one of the Medusas to draw. They may be worried that if they remove one Medusa with Ursula, then the other Medusa just won't quest and then Jafar won't get its card draw. I would wager that's the concern for them there. It's also possible they want to prioritize removing Sisu with Ursula. They could go Ursula plus Jafar into Sisu with a very near empty hand. Both would remain on the board for a rainy day, and they'd get the card draw. Because, of course, Ursula would be removed, but... There we go, the Fox! The Sisu's back, baby! Look at that. I love the Fox bounce for some extra lore gain. That's why I love the Maleficents in the Amethyst decks, the 1-drops. Being able to quest and then bounce something back is so powerful at this stage in the game. Beast comes down. Jafar is going to sing Strength. Can only deal 3. Ursula does now remove a Medusa. That might be another reason they wanted to get that Strength of Raging Fire through, and they needed Ursula on the board to help contribute towards it. Off the top, not sure what it is, but Beast, of course, is starting to threaten quite a lot of card draw. I could consider removing the Jafar to deny the card draw from that, but bam, it's Be Prepared! See you later, Beast. That's pretty good, isn't it? And we go next. Andrew decides to call next at that point when the Be Prepared goes through. I was only 2 away. So we go into game number 2. Andrew's going first again. Are they going to mulligan 7? I've got a Medusa. I've got a castle. I've got a goat. I've not got any brawls. I've not got any Peter Pan. So I think an aggressive mulligan is needed here. Pretty curious, actually, to see how I mulligan looking back. I've got a Chernabog, which I'm sure I'm going to keep. Sisu might be tempting to hold on to because it's a good curve. But it does look like I'm mulliganing pretty aggressively. 2 cards being kept. I think it was a Chernabogs and maybe a Fox. Not sure about the logic on keeping Fox exactly. It's obviously not a bad early game card. It does add a card back to my hand. But in comes a Diablo and another Diablo, and that is not a very good hand, is it? Where's the Pans? Where's the Brawls? They are nowhere to be seen. And that is going to be music to Andrew's ears, I'm sure. I've got a Chernabog, a Broom, a Maui, a couple of Foxes, and that Be Prepared is not what you want to be seeing in your opening hand. That's for sure. 7 turns away from being able to play it. Of course, I'm going to play a Chernabog or a Broom down, although, having said that, there is a risk of playing them at this stage because they could baboon me, or moreover, they could shift in Diablo and sing, let the Storm Rage on or Strength to remove this and deny my card draw. So there's honestly an argument not to even play the Chernabog here. I'm just going to take a sip of my drink. We're doing this in one take. Aladdin gets inked. In comes Ursula. They'd already seen my hand, but B King's been added into the mixer as well. It is Be Prepared they decide to discard, which kind of signals to me that they don't have another Ursula in hand. If they had another Ursula in hand, I think it's likely that they would have just discarded the B King and then get rid of the Be Prepared on turn 6 or something. Sudden Chill gets discarded to shift in the Diablo, and of course it's exerted straight away, which means when I draw, Andrew draws, and that is a pretty scary start. So my Chernabogs quests, I've got the ability to draw with it, but of course that would mean Diablo draws, so instead I'm going to decide to bounce it back at Inca Maui, which feels pretty expensive. And the nice thing about the snake is it puts some stats on the board, but it adds a card back into my hand, which helps mitigate potentially the discard value. Again, my game plan here is just making sure that I'm not putting characters down on the board which are low impact and whittling my hand down. Cards like Flynn Rider are very bad in this matchup, which is kind of another reason I dropped the count of Flynn Rider to just 2. Bucky comes through. Thank goodness it wasn't on turn 2, in truth. I draw, and so does Andrew and their pesky Diablo. And guess what? It's turn 3. I've got no Brawl. I've got no Pan Shadow. It's not looking good, is it? It's not looking good at all. I did take an aggressive mulligan of 5. So I think it's fair to say I'm just a little bit unlucky. Essentially, I've got 6 Brawls in the deck with those 2 Peter Pans. But again, the Fox comes through and adds a card back into my hand, which is helping whittle down the potential value of the Bucky. Again, I just really need to get to 6 and 7, get that Medusa through, get that Be Prepared through, and then stabilize from there. That is the objective. Andrew still knows there's a B King in my hand as well from that Ursula on turn 2. So inks 1 cost Diablo, and for 4 is a Jafar. Of course, that's a Bucky trigger as well. So I'm going to be tempted maybe to discard the B King at this point because I'm a bit worried about that being discarded by another Ursula down the line. That is what I decided to go for, of course. Queen's Castle could be good for me as just an inkable card as well. I think that's the other reason B King has to go. It's uninkable. And my hand's getting whittled down. I do find another copy of B King. The problem with the rabbit here is it's going to mean that Andrew draws, but I might not really have much choice at this point. Definitely not the start you're looking for. This is the stage where I'd love to have that pan to apply some board pressure. Love to have that brawl, remove the Diablo, but every turn that I miss it is an extra card in hand for Andrew and the Diablo. So I could go Queen's Castle here, but they can literally clear it while just challenging with everything on the board. Although obviously you probably wouldn't want to challenge with Bucky, but it just doesn't feel like Queen's Castle is providing me enough value. It's like I say, at this point, maybe my out is to just play nothing and just ink each turn and get to 7, get to be prepared and stabilize. That might be my best bet. So I do ink Castle. Do I play anything? I play a rabbit. Unfortunately, it means Andrew's going to draw, but I need to dig for my cards I'm looking for. And also my rabbit's going to be able to sing Bee King, so can help me get some board control. So yeah, inked Castle that turn, played rabbit. Andrew with probably about 1 million cards in hand with this pesky Diablo. Going to be able to go to 5 ink this turn, and that's of course the time where you can start seeing things like Robin Hood and Beast. And for me at this stage, I think the game plan's just got to be get to 7, top deck be prepared at the perfect moment, and then somehow claw my way back. The problem is that Andrew's winning the card advantage battle at this stage as well, because this Diablo's been around, and this is terrible news. Hidden Cove enters the board. It's able to remove my Fox while remaining on the board as the Jafar moved into the Cove. And of course, Diablo can move into the Hidden Cove, which puts it out of reach of my tech cards like Peter Pan and Brawl. So the Hidden Cove is very, very spooky. I'm currently at 4 ink. Andrew can go to 5, of course, this turn. So I think they're still able to ink. Ursula does actually get played, gets rid of the Bee King. They knew there was 1 in there still from before. Actually, I don't think they... Yeah, I think they did. I've drawn a lot of Bee Kings and a lot of Bee Preps here, and not many Brawls, not many Peter Pan. Sudden Chill being sunned by Diablo, just continuing to whittle my hand down. I do decide to get rid of the Bee King simply because it is uninkable. And unsurprisingly, Diablo's going to go into the Cove. Ursa's going to quest. It's not looking good, is it? It's not looking good at all. Medusa's very nice. The problem is Medusa can't be played for a little while longer still. Now, of course, this Jafar has 4 damage counters on it, so if I'm able to remove the Hidden Cove, the Jafar's going to be removed too. And I do manage to do that by rushing in with the Fox, bouncing the rabbit back. I draw, but unfortunately so does Andrew and the Diablo. Of course, my Fox is exerted after that rush. I want to make sure I'm inking each turn. So inking the Flynn Rider. And I pass on over to Andrew. I could have played Snake here, perhaps. Could have snaked the Fox back into my hand. Would have been readied, but I decided instead to just leave that 2 ink floating. I think it might have maybe been a better decision to just play the Snake, but I doubt it would have made a difference. In comes another Bucky. In comes a Diablo. Double discard. Absolute disgrace. So I ink a rabbit and have to ink again, and I go for the Snake, leaving just 1 card in hand, and I'm not honestly sure what it is. But Strength then removes my Fox. And I'm just praying that I somehow... I think it's Medusa in hand, isn't it? I'm praying that I just get to 7. I actually think I misplay here. I'm pretty sure I was supposed to discard the Medusa. Ink one of the... Medusa's not winning me the game here, right? And I'm now at 6 ink, and I'm in top deck mode. I think what I would have been better off doing is inking something different, like discarding Medusa and inking one of the cards I discarded, like the Snake. Or keeping the rabbit, playing the rabbit, letting my opponent draw. But basically my only chance to ever win at this stage is get to 7 and top deck be prepared, right? Whereas instead what I've done is I've played a Medusa when I could have spent the turn inking. And now if I top deck be prepared, I'm only at 6 ink. So I think even the be prepared line probably wasn't going to help me out, but I think at this stage in the game, I was supposed to just accept my fate, ink every turn, and pray that I was able to be prepared at the right moment. But as you can see, Andrew is in the driving seat here. Beast comes through. I've got nothing to discard, but big quest gets him to 15. I top deck a Sisu. I don't even want to show Andrew what it is, conceal as much information as possible. When we go to game 3, it all comes down to this. My first chance to go first. Now, important to note at this stage, the winner of this is going to be 5-0 in Swiss, and there will only be 2 players in the tournament 5-0. So the player that wins this is very much incentivized to ID the last round, because then they're guaranteed either first or second seed going into the top cut. You can see Tangmar behind Andrew to the right there, who also plays at Brotherhood in London, where Andrew plays. I play sometimes. Shout out to Brotherhood Store and all the people that play there. Very good players. Tangmar is also playing there, as is Reese, who finished second in Lille. So Tangmar was the other player who was 5-0 after this round, and is kind of the person that whoever wins this will be playing. But whoever wins this is just going to ID the next round. Like, it literally makes no sense not to. Both players are guaranteed first and second seed in the top cut because they're the only players 5-0. But it's 7 again from Andrew. So if I win, whoever wins this is in the top cut as either the first or second seed. So it's a huge, huge game. Whoever loses has the potential of maybe IDing their last game, but I don't think the maths quite checks out. So whoever basically wins this, whoever loses this, is going to probably play their last game and is not guaranteed, therefore, to make it through to the top cut. Also in this tournament, seeding did matter. Bad start, no turn 1, which I'm not happy about. I ink a snake, I play nothing. Having said that, obviously, if there's ever a matchup to play nothing, it could be this one. I've got Brawl, I've got Peter Pan, I'm feeling a little bit better about my life, but I don't have a turn 2. Obviously, the snake I inked, but I can't play snake on 2. This is another reason I'm interested in playing more 1-cost characters. It just gives my snake on 2 a bit more consistency. Since I'm not that huge on the Flynn Rider overall at the moment, and I reduce the count of it, more 1-drops also improve my turn 2, because I have the option of going snake on turn 2 more consistently, and I have the option of playing double 1-drop on turn 2. Bucky on 2 is pretty spooky, and I don't exactly have a good turn 3 play, but I do have an uninkable 3-cost character, which I may as well. I have to play at some point. I have the Brawls, so I have kind of that backup if Diablo does come down and sing something to remove my pan. I have the Brawls ready to go. So I play the pan, slow start, but again, against Bucky, that's probably all right. You don't want to just like Flynn Rider. I would probably just be inking here and not playing anyway, so maybe this Peter Pan puts Andrew off of playing Diablo. Not sure if they actually have it, can't tell. But that's fine by me because this Ursula is ready to get brawled. I'm loving Ruby, honestly. My experience from this weekend, I obviously love the Amethyst stuff, but I really loved playing Ruby. Like the brawls in particular, just so nice in this matchup, of course, in particular. The Medusas as well. The Bee Kings are great with the rabbits. Of course, it's just a nice color combo, but I have to say the brawl was one of my favorites. I ink Fox, quest for 1, and it's on over to Andrew with a Bucky still on the board. Of course, I could try and Bee King Undisputed it if Andrew is not able to get a character down, but I'm sure that is not going to happen anytime soon. Robin Hood gets inked. In comes a Flynn Rider this time, so I have to discard because of Bucky. I've got the Rabbit, I've got a couple of Brawls or a Bee King Undisputed. All cards I quite like the look of, in truth. So it's a very interesting decision. Probably Bee King is the most obvious because it's the only song. It's also uninkable and isn't drawing me cards. Like, I probably want to get this Rabbit down on the board next. But equally, the Bee King is very good here. It removes either Flynn or it removes either Bucky. The other thing to consider is obviously with Flynn on the board, I'm trying to balance how many cards I have in hand. I do decide to get rid of the Bee King, which I'm not thrilled about, but I obviously play 4 copies, so the chances of me drawing another are pretty high. I think it's Queen's Castle I draw, which is very interesting. Picking the right moment for Queen's Castle is going to be really important. Obviously, Flynn Rider and Peter Pan are both evasive as well. So in comes the Rabbit. Of course, no Diablo for Andrew, so it seems like a good time to go for it. I find Friends off the top, which seems pretty nice too. And I can sing it with the pan. All right, that's not bad, is it? Hello, Peter Pan. He's doing something. He's doing something. Of course, wasn't a turn 3 player I was thrilled about, but it's looking a lot better now. It's managed to quest for 1 and sing Friends. It's really not bad. While also just providing a bit of an evasive threat, of course. I do ink Sisu. Obviously, just want to keep inking each turn as much as possible. I want to try and get rid of this Bucky with things like Medusa, plus B prep, rather Medusa plus B king, or with something like a Be Prepared. So Andrew sings Let the Storm Rage On. Let the Storm Rage On to deal 2 damage to Peter Pan, which I'm kind of like wondering if maybe there's a read that like they're planning a Tinkerbell or something. Bucky is going to force me to discard because of Beast coming through. And I'm like, the Peter Pan's a bit of a weird one now because the Flynn Rider will be able to trade into it. And obviously I have a lot of cards in hand, I think. So the Flynn isn't questing for that much right now. I draw. Looks like 4 cards in hand, roughly. 5 ink available. Of course, Medusa onto Beast would be great at this moment in time. I have a couple of Brawls. I have another Rabbit. And I think a Queen's Castle. So no way of dealing with this Beast. And also the Flynn Rider is a little bit of a concern because it's making me not want to exert my Peter Pan. You can see Reese to the left there judging my plays. He actually said my mulligan in this game was near perfect. He said that he just thinks I should have mulliganed the Fox as well. To be fair, my uninkable count is abnormally high, so it might have been wise just holding on to an extra uninkable. So I was pretty happy with that, considering I don't play much Ruby Amethyst. First time actually ever playing this matchup. But again, I do know like the lines, in theory. So I get the second Rabbit down. I ink a Chernobog's. Obviously, I could be tempted to have played the Chernobog's. I just really don't want this card to get removed, and then I miss out on card draw. That feels like it could cost me the game. So I decided instead to ink it. I only have 2 ink available, so I'm not able to brawl the Flynn. So it goes back on over to Andrew. Beast is going to draw them an extra card, of course. I'm a little bit worried about Tinkerbell coming through on this turn after the 2 damage was sunk into Peter Pan. But the more I thought about it, the more I just felt it was a way of Andrew being able to trade out my Peter Pan with their Flynn Rider. But of course, Tinkerbell here would be pretty good. I am at 6 ink, so I'm threatening Be Prepared next turn. So Andrew might also want to try to play an Ursula Deceiver this turn to check. Goes 1 for Diablo, which is perhaps, well, it certainly gives him that information that there's no B prep. He says, wow, sees the Castle Double Brawl. Pretty scary hand. Pretty spooky. Could, of course, shift in Diablo potentially. Could just play Diablo and force me to discard. But with that Double Brawl, probably not something that they're too thrilled about the idea of. Of course, 1 Bucky on the board. Every Floodborn I'm going to have to discard once. 2 cards available for Andrew. 4 ink available. They haven't inked yet this turn either. And with 3 cards in hand, the Flynn Rider's going to quest for 1. Peter Pan is not exerted, so that's not going to be a reasonable challenge option. And that Rabbit doesn't really have a clean answer either. But Let the Storm Rage On is hard cast. Does remove the Pan. And Andrew draws, of course. Could have sung that with Beast or with Flynn, but decides not to. Ursula Deceiver of All gets inked. Beast is going to quest. Flynn's going to quest. Is Bucky going to quest? No. So that is a total of 3 lore. And it's back on over to me with my double Rabbit. What do I find? It's a snake. That's pretty good, isn't it? That is pretty good. There's no Diablo in sight, so the snakes can quest relatively safely. And the more cards I'm able to draw, the less this Flynn is a threat that I really need to answer. I don't want to use a Brawl on Flynn if I can at all help it. I just want to make it bad by having a bunch of cards in hand. And I would also be very happy to be prep this board, so I'm trying to just start getting the draw through, build my way up to Be Prepared. I draw a Maui, and that is a card. That is a card indeed. I'm a very happy bunny. Very, very happy with that because this Beast is drawing Andrew cards and the game's starting to get a little bit away from me with that Beast on the board. But the Maui comes through at the perfect moment. I have to ink to play it, so Castle slightly regrettably gets inked. But needs must. Bam! What a card Maui is, by the way. I know it's kind of obvious, but I'm really enjoying the Ruby vibes. Really, really enjoying Ruby. You can actually expect to see some more Ruby gameplay from me with a different color combo coming up in a future set championships, which I haven't yet played. I'm just theory crafting a cool deck. I say cool, unorthodox. I don't know how good it's going to be, but I've kind of had my try-hard tournaments with the creator set champs, and this I want to play a bit more jank. You guys know me, I love my wacky decks, and I've got a wacky deck coming your way for the next set championship. So Andrew's got 3 in hand. I discard a Brawl, but of course I have another Brawl available. Flynn is going to quest. Oh, yep, they are going to quest. I think I have Is Flynn questing? What's happening with this Flynn? I didn't adjust the lore counter, did I? I'm sure that's going to get adjusted. We'll have to wait and see. I'm sure Flynn just quested, though. So, I think Andrew's actually on 5 right now, or 6. I'm going to quest up to 6. B prep! Hello! Right on cue. Clears the board. I, of course, get to draw off the rabbit. Bucky's finally out of there. The Maui did help me a little bit by just denying that card draw of Beast for a turn. But the B prep was right where I need it to be. That's why you see so many Ruby Amethyst players playing 4 copies, because you just want it at the moment you need it. I don't have the ability to ink and play the Chernobyls down, so I pass on over. I'm also probably a little bit worried about the Chernobyls getting removed. Ursula gets inked. Bucky is back. And in comes another Beast I have to discard. Chernobyls is an easy choice there because I'm worried about it getting removed. I get to draw. Can I find a way of removing this Beast with something like a Medusa? Again, I think Andrew's actually at 5 or 6 lore here. Rabbit comes through. That's a good start. And hello, Medusa. I can't play her yet, but I know I'm just a turn away. And what I just need to be very careful of here is making sure that I don't whittle my hand down too much, where Andrew is able to discard that Medusa from my hand. 2 cards drawn because of Beast. Bucky still on the board. In comes Diablo. They're not going to like the look of that Medusa. They don't like that. Prime example of why you play 4 Medusas. Just too good off the top. Beast Quest. Surely this is where I recognize that I messed up before. Looks like it is. Yeah, up to 7 now. Doesn't quest with Bucky. Doesn't quest with Diablo. It's on over to me with Medusa ready to go on that Beast. Still a very tight game though, but it looks like I'm just able to stabilize with that Be Prepared and now this Medusa. Still have that Brawl in my back pocket as well. I've had that for a very, very long time, ready and waiting for that Diablo, and Andrew does therefore know it's in my hand as well. And this is where it's starting to look pretty good for me. I've got more cards in hand than Andrew, I think. I've got the rabbit ready to be bouncing back. But I don't want to ink, and therefore I do decide to quest with it. Not worried about it being removed. Ursula comes down. No songs. I let him know that the fox is a signed fox in my hand. And it's back on over to me, it seems. Not a great turn from Andrew. The top deck's not really what he's looking for right now. Me being able to answer that Beast, so important. As soon as you can restrict the card draw from Emerald Steel, they do struggle a little bit more. But as soon as like the Diablo or the Beast just draw an abundance of cards, things can get really spooky really, really quickly, because then they just have an abundance of good cards to just play down every turn. But when they're in top deck mode, there's so many cards like Diablo and Ursula which just aren't doing that much. I sing Friends. So many cards in hand available now, which is just mitigating the value of Bucky a bit, because I can just discard some pretty bad cards rather than, if I've just got 1 card in hand, I'm forced to discard the card I've been holding on to. Getting to that point where Queen's Castle is going to be making an impact, and there it is, picking the moment for Castle. Another card which is pretty hard to play perfectly, but this is the kind of moment where Queen's Castle is looking really good. I've got board control. I can move something into Castle for some card draw potential, and Andrew just doesn't have much in the way of being able to deal with it. 8 lore to 7. I'm 12 away, and the Queen's Castle is going to start running away with it unless Andrew can find a way to deal with it. Tinkerbell does come through, which I was a little bit worried about 5 or 6 turns ago. Pretty fortunate that they didn't have access to it then, because I'm sure it would have been snapped up when that pan was on 1 willpower. Of course, that's going to damage my characters, but not the location. So I have to discard still as well. I was just having a think. Sisu gets discarded. I've got a rabbit. I think I've still got that Brawl in hand, and maybe another Medusa, but I'm not sure on that last one. Sandra, of course, could quest. They could challenge into the castle. They could do nothing. None of the decisions seem great for Andrew here. My guess would be that they probably end up just challenging into the castle. or questing. And it's kind of... So initially they decide to go 2 into the castle. But I think actually they change their mind. They go 1 damage into the castle. And then do nothing with the Diablo. Possibly hoping to shift in Diablo. I'm a bit not sure on that play. I think personally they had to make a decision to just challenge or just quest. They could have tried to race me at this point and just say, okay, my only racing doesn't seem like it's going to work. I think Andrew's in a really tough spot. So they go for the 1 damage. I'm sure they have their reasons. I'm up to 10 because of the castle. And I've fully stabilized here. You see the game plan for Ruby Amethyst up against Bucky. Get to that 7 ink. Clear the board with a Be Prepared. And then just try and answer cards like Beast and restrict their card draw. While then eventually you're just going to start being able to combo things like Rabbits and Friends and Queen's Castles. Double quest up to 12. That Tinkerbell's a bit spooky. I have to be careful of that. But equally, I also just want to try and remove as many challenging threats as possible to keep my Queen's Castle protected. I go for a Rabbit for some card draw. I have a bunch of ink available, so it's quite possible I can still go for the Maui this turn as well. But I just wanted to see if there was anything I preferred. So I went for the card draw first. I decided to Ink Broom and spend 5 on the Maui, and I do remove that Ursula, of course. I want to quest with the Medusa and the Fox because they're able to quest, whereas the Maui is unable to quest this turn as it's just a rush character. So that's how I decide to remove the Ursula. So it's only the Fox in the Queen's Castle at the moment. I'm 8 away with, 5 lore on the board, including the castle. So, of course, Tinkerbell can remove a couple of cards at once. It could challenge Maui and remove the Mim. It could challenge Medusa and remove the Mim and remain on the board. So, actually goes for removing the Medusa and 2 damage into Maui with Tinkerbell. But then the Grab Your Swords comes through, which does finish up the Maui. It had that 1 damage counter from Ursula, then 2 from Tinkerbell, and then another 2 from Grab Your Swords. Ursula comes through. No song, though, fortunately for me. But suddenly, Andrew's got the board again. Pretty impressively. Admittedly, a lot of them are pretty low cost. I do wonder if at this moment in time, there's ever an argument for Andrew to start doing stuff with the Bucky as well. At some point, it's got to be correct, but I'm up to 14 thanks to the castle. The Tinkerbell looks like a pretty tempting option to remove with the Rabbit if I don't have any rush. Because that 4 strength is the biggest threat, really, to my castle. Now, the Rabbit might be a good option to just get that card draw through first and see if there's anything else I want to do. I'm still able to play Maui or Medusa here. Or challenge the Rabbit if I want more. Or challenge the Tinkerbell with the Rabbit if I want more card draw. I do decide to do that. So Tink is gone, but I get to draw. And that just allows me to make even more decisions because I have more cards available in hand to make the best decision possible. Looks like it's going to be Maui, I would imagine. Just keep removing as many threats as possible. Keep that castle as protected as possible. I ink Flynn to move the Rabbit into the Queen's Castle. Back on over to Andrew. I'm only 6 away now. It's looking very, very good. Let the Storm Rage on. Deals 2 damage to the Rabbit. Andrew's going to draw. Beast comes through. I have to discard because of Bucky. So it's either Brawl, Medusa, or the Snake. I decide actually at this point it's finally time to get rid of that Brawl that's been in my back pocket for a very long time. Mainly because the Snake provides me card draw onto the Rabbit, but also if I find a goat, the Snake is lore. I draw twice because of the Queen's Castle having a card in there. 1 in hand for Andrew. I've got Medusa to answer the Beast, which is of course the card draw threat. So that's going to remove the Beast. I'm going to quest with the Rabbit up to 17 probably. But he calls it there. GG to Andrew, and I am 5-0 undefeated at ID in the final round of Swiss against Tengmar to go into the top 8 cut as the top seed. The next video is the game for the Ursula. I'm in the top cut. I'm the top seed in the tournament. 63 players. First time playing Ruby Amethyst. Wow. Let's flipping go.